Hi there, my name is Shreya. Today we are going to dive headfirst into the world of Azure DevOps. Whether you are a seasoned developer, an aspiring DevOps engineer, or just curious about the world of DevOps, this video is for you. So this is going to be a two-part series, and in the first part we'll be discussing about what is DevOps, what is Azure DevOps, and what are Azure DevOps repositories. What is DevOps? DevOps stands for Development and Operations. In order to really understand this, let's take an example. Imagine you were dreaming about a world where customers can effortlessly search and find a restaurant. So you're basically thinking of a food app. And in order to create this food app, there are two teams that you require. The first team is a development team and the second team is an IT or operations team. And these two teams have different functions. The development team consists of designers, developers and testers. And the designers would first design the layout, the icons and various other things for your food app. Whereas the developers would then develop or write the code for the food app in order to make sure that the user experience is seamless. And finally, the testers would test that code, and if there are any defects, they would send it back to the developers. This would take a couple of months, and when the code was defect free, the code would be handed over to the operations team. The operations team would then ensure that the code is running smoothly by making sure that the infrastructure where they are going to deploy the code is proper and it is running. Then they would perform maintenance activities to make sure that the customer experience is again smooth. Since both the teams were working in silos, they faced many issues. The prominent being slow release cycles. It took weeks, even months for bug fixes and to release new features. This was because the development team would be working on bug fixes and feature release for months and months before they handed it over to the operations team. Another issue they faced was that the application was usually buggy and unreliable. This was because the development team had a poor understanding of the production environment, since the production environments were managed by the operations teams. In order to solve the problems between the development and the operations teams, DevOps was created. It is a set of principles that aim to bring development and operations together. In order to understand DevOps, let us consider Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps was created by Microsoft and it's a DevOps platform. It has 5 parts to it. The first being Azure Boards. So Azure Boards is a place where managers, product owners can plan, track and discuss work among the team members. If we consider our food app, a manager would have to assign tasks to his team. He would, for example, create a user story. Say, I am a customer and I want to be able to search for restaurants. Then this work item would be assigned to a developer or a tester. So this is how Azure boards are used. Next up in Azure DevOps, we have Azure Repos. Repos offer a robust version control system like Git, which enables developers to collaborate seamlessly. So in our food app, developers can use repos to collaborate on various things like restaurant search algorithm, customer data handling, and food app user interface. Now let's talk about Azure pipelines. This is the heart of automation because this is where the building, testing, and deployment processes are automated. So, in the food app, when a new feature is rolled out or a bug is fixed, pipelines ensure that there is integration, testing, and deployment done seamlessly. This would mean that the food app updates are quick and reliable. Next, we have Azure Artifacts. You can think of this as a hub which has all the packages and dependencies which an app would need. It's like a well stocked pantry that caters to all the requirements of a food app. And finally, there is Azure Test Plans. This is where testers can create, manage, and track test cases. For our food app example, testers can develop plans for testing search features, data handling, user authentication, and much more. So hi guys, let's see how to use Azure DevOps portal. So for that you can first log into your Azure portal and then go to dev.azure.com, and here you can create a new project by clicking on new project. Then give your project a name. So let's call it DevOps tutorial, and then you can choose the version control which you want. So I'm going with Git and let the work items be basic, and then you hit create. So once that is done, you want to add people into your project. So you can click on invite, enter their email ID. Okay, so let's go to repos first. Currently, there is no repo existing, but since I'm using Git, I can use this URL to bring the remote Git server into my local machine. So I'll just copy this here and I will go to any folder on my laptop. So let me open command prompt here, and then let's clone my remote repository. So if you're doing this for the first time, it will ask you for your user ID and password. Okay, so you appear to have cloned an empty repository, which basically means that the repository is created. So you can see that here. Next, let's go into this repository. Okay, so currently there are no files here. Okay, there is a dot, and so these are hidden folders which are present. Okay, so now I'm just going to go in here and let's create a simple txt file just to show you. Let's call it example, and I'm going to open this and hello Azure DevOps. Okay, let's save this. So developers or testers or designers can create their uh, files here, and then the next step would be to push it onto the remote server. And to do that, let's go back to my command prompt. Let's see what is the status. Okay, so the file currently is untracked. Okay. Okay, now let's commit this. And in order to move it to the remote repository, you can use git push command. Okay, so for new users, this might also ask you for a password, but for me, all the tokens are saved. So now let's go to Azure portal and see if the repository has been created and the file has been added or not. So as you can see here, this is the repository, and okay, so we have the file. You can see the history of the commit. the ID, the user who created it, and the time. And if you want to create a new branch, you can add it from here, or from here, or from your local system. And if you want to check your commits, then go to this and you can see a list of all the commits which were made, all the pushes which were done. And pull requests are basically like merge requests. So if you're working in a branch and you want to merge it with the master branch, then you can raise a pull request here. So this is all about Azure repos.